We're now going to talk about striking. We're going to demonstrate our ABC approach. A is for alignment, and the first thing we need to concentrate on, if Maynard comes out, and Maynard, if you'd like to stand here, is ensuring that we use the right target surface on the right target area. We have several target areas, and later on in the DVD we'll discuss the appropriateness of Waza, as in our actual striking technique, or a Waza, making sure we actually strike various points on the human anatomy that attack the autonomous nervous system. Very, very simple, but we need to have clear in our head what we're doing, and we need to use our keep it simple, skillful approach. If Luke would just bring over the rock for me, and Luke holds the rock up, alignment becomes very important when I need to punch something. So I make sure that I'm not coming in at the wrong angle, because I'll end up with what's called in the medical profession a brawler's or a drunken fracture, which happens from your Friday night or Saturday night specials when people are going out throwing punches. So alignment is very important. Making sure we strike with the correct area of the human body. Breathing, thank you Luke, you sit down, is very important, because we need to breathe out when we strike, and control is very important. If I could ask Karl to quickly jump up and put the gloves on, and Karl's going to quickly come into me and throw a massive round punch. If it's overextended or whatever, we will end up impacting against the thing. If we're not too fast, we can retract. However, if we're too fast, and Karl's here, and I go to punch and I miss, then straight away I've overextended, put all my power into something there. So we always need to make sure that we strike with control. Just enough force to create the damage or to create the space, but at the same time without hurting myself. Because all I need to do is repeatedly hit the person and create the space. For ease of learning and for ease of remembering, we classify striking into very simple groups: spherical, rotational, stiletto, and durational. Later on in this DVD, we'll show the various more specific types of striking using fingers, the blade of the hand, and everything else. But all these can fit into these quite broad 4 simple categories. We're going to start with spherical. Your basic spherical means you strike follows round. A very simple thing. With all our striking, we power down by making sure we have a good base. This is our control. We make sure that our breathing's there and we're breathing out. And always alignment, 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 because as we demonstrated earlier, if we use the wrong target area, we don't have proper alignment, then you're going to get hurt. And the proof of the pudding is that I'm going to ask James to jump up now and just throw a roundhouse at this wall for me, James. Only 1% power, very slowly, and you're going to get the wrong alignment. So, as a general rule of thumb, James, you just want to be standing here. The general rule of thumb is that with our spherical striking, it's following round, but it's open-handed because we're going to a hard surface there. And it needs to be soft. And I did that with quite gently. But obviously we know we chamber up, power down, shielding, and I've set off in there. I'm not going to hurt my hand, and I can repeat that. And later on we will demonstrate our RLR and LRR principles. Moving on now, we're going to be looking at our durational types of striking. Same sort of rule of thumb applies, but this time I make sure that I leave it on there. And this is often referred to, especially by my older jiu-jitsu teachers, as time on target, or TOT. And the emphasis here is that we're putting our energy in, but we're also breathing out and everything. As it stays there, we leave this on here for the longest amount of time. I'm just going to demonstrate this once. And the force goes in. Again, very gently, but just enough to make sure that we're going in. Another type of striking, as we talked about earlier, is our rotational. And we get extra force by having rotational movement. Now this is demonstrated quite classically in your typical karate punching, and this is seen through all martial arts. But from a Goshin Jutsu perspective, this rotational only really comes from the shoulder and elbow. We still need to have alignment, but as we do this, strike, I'm just going to do it here, that we chamber in, so we get almost, and this little rotational gives extra power into it. Additionally, we have strikes that are stiletto, that go in, and we look to have the smallest possible point, and we put the most weight into this. If you imagine a stiletto heel, we have any form of small object, something like a knuckle, that we're close enough that we're in, that we can put all of them through a small area to create our effect. And our final category is I refer to as cleaving. This is a very simple movement. You just imagine that you've picked up something and you've cleaved. It's just straight down. With all these things, the key word is alignment, breathing, and control. Because if I cleave at the wrong angle, I don't want to be cleaving onto a wall, because the force is going to go against my wrist. So later on, when we demonstrate the very particular striking areas of the hand, the forehand, the triceps, you'll see that all of the strikes that you have fall into these broad categories of spherical, rotational, stiletto, durational. And additionally, I'm going to throw another one into the pile, is whiplash. And the principle of whiplash is that you send it back as fast as it goes in. I'm only going to do this very gently here, because it's done more as what we call a concept of metsubushi at a person. But it is, again, a very powerful strike, but the alignment does need to be there. So it's coming in. We're now going to demonstrate our RLR principle, right, left, right, and our LRL, or left, right, left principle. Strikes should always be achieved in passing, and striking should always be continuous, and striking should happen in a 6-second burst. Attack, 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 with alignment, breathing, and control. I'm going to ask Maynard to jump up. He's going to put the pads up, and a very simple drill is that in your head, whatever strike you want to go, you say to yourself, right, left, right, left, right, left. I'm going to ask Karl to come up now. Thank you, Maynard. Just here, and if you take your belt off, and just pop your jacket on the floor there. So, a good drill to do that is I'm going to ask James to choose a strike for me, James. Just shout out anyone.
Palm strike.
So we're going to do palm strike. We know that we tend to use a palm strike against the major target area around here and on the torso. And later on in the DVD we'll discuss the more appropriateness of using palm heel around here and here. But just so the drill is, so it is. Making sure I'm shielding and covering up the whole time, centre line theory. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And when I've done that, and we train to do this very aggressively with lots of things, but at the same time when you're training with your partner, we use the pads for aggression and energy and 100% commitment, and then we train gently as if we've got a rock or a hard surface against the human body. So I know that when I'm attacking here, that I'm attacking, later on we will talk about the Waza and the facial nerve, and the facial nerve is the third nerve, shortest route straight through to the centre of the brain, the medulla oblongata, where all the messages eventually go, and that will put his lights out. So we know this is here, so we need to be making sure our alignment is here. And this is a spherical strike. If I decide I want to practice time on target, I can practice this. If I want to start putting a little bit of rotational in this, I can put my rotational in, but just enough to do this. And then equally, the head's gone this way, so I need to cover and make sure that I'm coming around, powering down, stepping, and coming through the other way. Left again. And then even so, still making sure I'm going in at the right angle with the right striking surface of the hand. That time, I was not quite in, so my palm heel would need to be coming back in this way to do this. And these are all things that we'll discuss in greater detail later on. Thank you, Karl. If you put your jacket back on, your belt on for me. Thank you. We're now going to talk about striking practice and give you a few drills to practice at home. Importantly for me, I think the one thing that I never see taught is what I'd say is, I'm going to call this safety first. I've been training in martial arts a long time, and I'm sure you watching this have been training many years too. Everyone talks about knocking people out. Everyone talks about developing power and everything else. Very few people know what to do next. And this is what we're going to talk about now. I think it's vitally important, in fact I'm going to be quite controversial here to say, if you're a martial artist, you should know how to deal with an unconscious casualty, whether it be in the dojo, whether it be in the street, or even your friend. If you're at home now, what I'd just like you to do is hold your breath now. I'm going to ask Karl to come up. Karl, would you just like to stand there for me? And hold your breath. I took a deep breath in. Hold it. And just, we'll see how long Karl can last without actually breathing. As you notice now, it's starting to show a few signs of stress. Okay, Karl, how long would you say you held your breath for without taking a deep breath in?
About 25 seconds.
About 25 seconds. Now, if we say that you're maybe under a bit of stress, would you say it'd be higher or lower? Because you took a bit of a deep breath in first.
Probably lower.
Probably lower.
Because you panic.
Okay. This is what happens when you knock someone unconscious. I'm just going to do a typical strike here that most people in martial arts knows, but being me, I'm not going to do it because I believe that this area here is a very small area. It's only musculature, and within it you have the carotid arteries, your nerves, and the carotid cluster. These are very, very, I think, quite fragile things. I think it's reckless to hit here, and there's no need to hit here. So I'm going to demonstrate that I hit here. Carl's going to fall down to the ground for me, and just pretend to be out, Carl. I have no need to demonstrate that I'm going to knock Carl out. Now, lots of people immediately come rushing over, pull the person up and start slapping on the back and doing all this thing. What happens when someone becomes unconscious or knocks out is the head hits the ground first and their airway becomes compromised or closed. And as I said, I'm going to be controversial now. This is what you do. Very simply, we need to open and maintain his airway. So we come over to one side of the body, we bring the hand over, rest it here, we bring the leg up, and that just pulls it over. You don't have to worry too much about this arm, that will take care of itself. The knee up, and we open up the head. Because what happens when someone becomes properly unconscious, they lose control of their body systems, and one of the responses of the autonomic nervous system is to evacuate the stomach. Vomit will come up and it will come out. And in his own time, Karl will come round. If he doesn't come round, he's in a position, the airway's protected, there's a good stable here, which means one lung is open, there's no pressure on it, and he can breathe easily. And of course then you monitor them. If Karl just sits up for me to here, if I suddenly throw his things forward and someone comes rushing around, this airway is blocked. And this is not what we want. And we can be stroking up. I'm not disputing the fact that there are energy levels and meridians in the body at all. What I am disputing is that fundamentally, our first thing as martial artists, if we're going to learn how to strike or knock someone out, we should know what to do first. And then, and the thing is, if someone is knocked out, then they've had a head injury and they need to go to hospital. The brain is a very fragile instrument. I think this is a very important point. And that's my stall on this one. Safety first. So we teach this in all our schools. I suggest to you that if you want to develop the power to render someone unconscious or out, you at the very least know the skills, to know the priorities of ensuring someone has an open airway and is in a safe position to recover. We're now going to demonstrate the recovery position from a different angle. Very simple. You come in, arm up, hand over, hands kept here to protect the face, outer legs lift up, and it takes no pressure just to bring them over to here. Bring them in, and here we just need to pop the head back to make sure, and we position ourselves here so we monitor and watch what's going on. If he's unconscious, he will come round. If he hasn't come round in a short while, then you need to be phoning for an ambulance straight away. You also need to be staying here and watching it. If you're by yourself, you obviously have to go and leave and dial 999. And this is very, very important. If he has just had a light knockout, a bit stunned or whatever, he'll come round by his own time, and you'd be surprised how quickly that happens. now going to talk about the concept of the body as a weapon. The body has a major torso group. It has a head. I have 4 limbs. And very simply, all of these should be used in unison. And one of the very simple things that we miss when using the body as a weapon is just using the whole of the body. I'm going to ask Luke to jump up now. Very simply is here. And the whole of my body I can use just to strike by just charging and moving forward. Thank you, Luke. Very, very simple, but we must not forget that we have a certain body mass and weight. Sometimes it's very simple just to cover up, come in and body slam or charge. And this could be part of our strike. If I ask Maynard to stand up now, as here, as I'm coming in, I'm going to choose the outer aspect of my forearm. I'm not striking with a bow. As part of my covering up and stepping forward, I'm pushing and striking, so everything is happening at the same time. And later on, when we start doing our training drills, we can combine this with our right-left, fundamentally coming in and making sure we're in a position to do all these as a drill. And these things you practice slowly and gently on a real person. And then I'm going to ask Karl and James to jump up with the pad. And they're just going to demonstrate doing the same strike, but they're just going to do it full power. No, James, you do the strike, please, for me.
Yeah.
And you just do the forearm strike, full power against the bag, and entering and everything else. That's it. And then just do your right, left, right with it as well. Nice and hard to get your power up. Lovely, thank you very much. And then also when you do your next drill round, again it's back to the human body and practicing and being very gentle, but making sure our targeting is there. So automatically we're hitting with the right target area, right time, right place, right strike. We're now going to look at the use of the upper limb as a striking implement or striking tool. It has lots of different services. From a practitioner in Goshin Jiu-Jitsu view or a student, these are the things that you'll need to remember, need to understand the theory, and obviously need to practice. I'm going to ask James to come up now. Start talking about the hand. The hand has 4 surfaces. We have an inner surface, fundamentally very good for striking here. We have the back of the hand, but really it's moving to the back of the wrist here, and we can strike again. Additionally, we can use these to strike various aspects of his body, but primarily our hands are open and are striking the head. We also have the ridge hand, and again, but we need to remember to pull our thumb down, and ideally we want to be coming in at nice fleshy areas. Coming in this way. Coming this way. James, you just turn this way as well. So we're coming in at these sorts of levels. We have the here, making sure, and this is where we start to see how a strike can fall into a various category. My rotational movement coming in here. With here, this is very much a whiplash. movement which creates the power. I have my fingers for shimmy te and shimmy waza, and this is where we come in and we start to use our stiletto approach on the various points of the body. Moving on to the forearm, we have the inner aspect of the forearm, ideal for coming in and striking the throat, and we have our outer aspect, and here very much a cleaving motion. And again, making sure I have the correct alignment and making sure we're using our ABC approach. Alignment, breathing, down and control. Because if we get this wrong, it will skip off and we can hit in. And later on in the DVD, we will show you aspects of this outside where you will see the relevance and the importance of using the ABC approach. Okay, we're now going to look at striking with the tricep and the bicep. Again, our principles of alignment, breathing, control are there. The way that we develop this and practice this is that we make sure we come and find a nice thing. We start off very slowly, so we know that we're striking with the right part, and we build up. And again, our breathing comes in, our power down here. Very simple. I'll demonstrate on Maynard now. Come here, and this strike can be used down here, anywhere, but later on we'll discuss the vital areas, the atemi points to strike. We're just here again, making sure always where possible we combine everything that we're doing by shielding and striking at the same time. We're now going to look at the bicep and striking. Again, this can be done using the body as a weapon against an arm or something, or making sure we're in a position to come up, to come into here, or to come into here. But making sure our alignment's right here, so we're shielded. Again, range, we're not throwing it out too much. Alignment, proper use of the muscle group to strike, and good control. We're now going to look at the use of the head to strike with. The head has a number of different striking surfaces. One here and one here. And if you buy a decent book on anatomy and look at the structure of the skull and everything else, you notice that these are the hardest and thickest parts of the head. Additionally, if I turn around, we have a here and here. And again, it's very simple. The way to practice this, very gently, to make sure we have the good alignment, is know that we can have correct alignment. If I borrow Karl, know that we use this very simply. When close to the person, we do not chamber or start doing it. Yes, we can do all this, but ideally we just want to be in close. I'll power down, we're breathing out, and we're doing it with control. And obviously I pulled that just a little bit, but this is the start of things we don't. We don't particularly want to be going anywhere around the toothy pegs or onto his nose. We want to be coming around to the side of the face again. Additionally, if they're a bit taller, I'll use Maynard, because Maynard's a bit taller. I'm a bit smaller. If I'm powering down or here or anything else, then I make sure I turn my head, good alignment, and into the person. Very, very simple. Additionally, from behind, we can do the same thing. We don't want to be throwing our head back because it becomes a very awkward position. We just need to be close enough to go and do it because it creates space. And when we have space, we have movement. Later on, James will talk about rotating the hips, creating space, and striking in volume 2. We're now going to look at striking with the lower limbs. Equally, just like the hand, we have our foot, we have our shin, we have our knee, and we have our thigh. We don't necessarily strike with our actual kneecap. A lot of systems do. Similar to here, we actually strike with the muscle plateau here. I'm going to demonstrate now. Basically, I'll take Karl, please. And you come this way, Karl. Put your foot forward that way. So starting with the foot, from a very simple basis, we just come in and we're looking to go for what we call an inversion injury. So this foot here will rotate out, you know, your classical sprained ankle. That's the weak part of this. And we strike with the soft fleshy part here, but again range is very important. So we're just close to the person and we just come up. And it's important that we have our control here, because if I come up, lift, twist and turn, I sacrifice my balance. So the strike needs to be very simple, non-chambered, so it goes from where it is, and very simple. Moving up to the shin now. Again, we use the same striking, but the shin strikes in the same sort of way at these lower targets. So we're sacrificing very little balance. There, nice. Gently, good posture. Put my foot down. Moving up to the knee now. Again, we don't strike with this knee, striking with the muscle plateau. We don't necessarily want to be pulling someone up onto our knees. We want to be pulling someone down, so we're in a position to knee effectively at the lower aspects of the legs and hitting with that muscle group there. So we've looked at Waza. Waza is the house of striking. Right tool, right place, right time. ABC approach, alignment, breathing, control. We're now going to look at Waza, and this is attacking the nervous system of the body. We have an autonomic nervous system that controls our breathing, our heart rate, takes messages from all over the body, feeds up. Very simply, this feeds through a sensation network, and those sensation networks are more commonly known as nerves. These nerves take the messages to the brain, they make us breathe, they make our heart work, they keep us standing up. By attacking the vital points of the human body, we can cause a disruption along those pathways. Earlier I recommended that you buy a book on anatomy. Again, I can't state the importance of having a good understanding of all these and knowing where these points are. Over the next couple of chapters, we're going to demonstrate some very simple, very practical attacks against the human body, which create pain and also response. I like to break things down quite simply. We're going to have two types of attacks. We're going to be looking for very specific points that we apply pressure to, that cause pain, and also another very particular area that we attack or strike that has a slightly different effect, that drops the blood pressure. The body is fooled into thinking it's not getting enough oxygen. As a result of it thinking it's not getting enough oxygen, the lights in the head switch off and the person collapses. And we will demonstrate this in greater detail in the next chapter. We're now going to look at a Waza in greater detail. We're going to start with the radial nerve. The radial nerve runs down the arm. It feeds into the hand through a very small gap. It can be attacked by locking and snapping back. So you create almost like a log jam. And additionally, by coming into the hand here, coming along around the outside, you can feel where the pathway is. And we can do this by shimmy-tay. That's by gripping and attacking these points. And again, over the years, I've had numerous points pressed and everything else and come away with bruises and stuff. But more recently, talking to doctors and physiotherapists, there's a price to be paid for this. And in later times, some people will have very bad arthritis. Some people will have weaknesses there that will be undetected for a long time. And I see no reason to create intense pain on someone just to show an area. Additionally, these areas can be struck as part of our entrances and we having an understanding of where they are. So again, for our students, it's the suggestion that you buy the anatomy book and you read and you understand where these pathways are, and then when you're training, very gently, you learn to feel where they are to give the pain. So we have two ways of attacking, by grips, shimmy-tay, and also by striking as our natural thing, coming up here to get to these places. So we've looked at the radial nerve down here. Earlier on we were talking about our striking, coming in, very simple, but guess where the nerve ending for the foot is? So we start attacking the tibial nerve there. And again, this creates space for us. We've used good alignment, and then we're in a position to start moving and attacking our opponent. We're now going to look at attacking the facial nerve. The facial nerve, Maynard, you come through here, turn your head slightly, comes through from the top of the jaw, comes round. Additionally, it comes on the outside, comes on the inside, and there's a whole range of points around here, coming in here, and coming in here, that are open to attack by what we call shimate using the stiletto principle that we talked about earlier on. Now the stiletto principle is that through the smallest amount of point we put lots of energy and power, but additionally we want to make sure that we have something coming the other way, so when we come in to here there's nowhere for them to move. Additionally, when we're coming into the face there is nowhere for them to move. So we have this use of this stiletto effect. Additionally, if I borrow Karl, these are the same areas that we need to strike and everything else, and we make sure we get our alignment right on this. We can use our RLR coming in to bang on these points, looking at where they are and making sure that we're there to do it, or we can be close enough to start to use them when we're here, pushing in, making sure we've got the point and they're close in, and we're starting to use it as a shield. Very, very simple. A couple of key points. You don't need to know 1,001 things. You just need to know there's a couple. I think a very easy way of remembering this is that we call a very simple skin on bone approach. Wherever there's skin and there's bone close together, that if you attack it and rub in, you create pain and you create movement. Additionally, when you study the anatomy book, you will learn more precise points that you can attack. But fundamentally, with our Waza, we need to have alignment, breathing, control, and then look for the points. Thank you, Karl. We're now going to look at attacking another part of the autonomic nervous system. Very simple, very common throughout all of martial arts. Lots of mystique attached to this, lots of myth, lots of rumour. I like to keep things simple and skillful. If I bring James up, James, you come here. So, earlier on, I gave James a nice little tap around this triangle area there. And James, tell me how you felt.
Automatically made me feel sick, and I felt it in the top of my head and very close to going, actually.
Okay. Now, what happens here is that we have several structures. Those structures are veins, arteries, some nerves, and within those structures are some what they call receptors, and they measure certain things, the amount of oxygen and the amount of carbon dioxide in the blood. If they think there is a change in the pressure there, they send an automatic message to the brain, which is shut down. The brain's fight or flight system kicks in, which is a massive release of adrenaline. Oxygen goes only to the brain and to the heart muscle, and the stomach is told to evacuate its contents. These things are situated in the carotid things, and they measure, and they're very sensitive to the oxygen, they're very sensitive to carbon dioxide. You strike here, you create a disruption to all these things, and the message goes very, very quickly. You get a massive drop in blood pressure, and the person falls down to the ground. So someone's down on the ground as a result of a strike to the carotid cluster. Again, safety first. I'm just going to look at James. I'm going to confirm whether he's unconscious or conscious. And the easiest way to do that is to ask a question, James, look at me, mate. And he looks at me, so his eyes are open, okay. So I don't have to quickly rush him over and everything else, but we know that the chances are that he's hit the ground as a result of a massive drop in blood pressure and everything else. The treatment to this is what we call the shock position. And if you come across an old lady in the street who's had a bleed or fainted or whatever, quite often you might see someone lifting the legs up and popping them on a chair. And this is all we're doing because we have some good old big muscles here in the legs that carry a whole lot of blood. And we just pop them up. And the easiest thing to do is just rest them up on your tummy. I can see my person right in front of me, and I can say, there, James, just take it nice and easy. You okay? Don't feel too sick. If he was decided to feel sick or whatever, then I'll say, right, okay, I've got some blood going back into him. I can put the legs down, drop him over into the recovery position. That area is particularly good to strike. If James jumps up, we can attack it in lots of different ways. And later on in volume 2, you'll see demonstrations of strangles and chokes all around the neck area. However, from a particular striking thing, we just need to know that all of our strikes will get there. Spherical, rotational, cleaving, durational. Very simple. Primary target area, and we don't have to develop much power or speed to get into that area. Again, homework is read the anatomy and have a good understanding of where you're striking.